Good morning, everyone. The topic I'm going to cover today is management of medically compromised child, in which the contents include the respiratory disorders, which includes the cystic fibrosis and the renal disorders. What is cystic fibrosis? Cystic fibrosis is a hereditary disorder characterized by lung congestion and infection and malabsorption of the nutrients by the pancreas. It is a common hereditary disease among the white population, that is, among the Europeans and the Americans. It is less seen among the Asian Americans and the African Americans. It is one of the most lethal disorder. Autosomal recessive monogenic disorder, and it is caused by abnormal transport of the chloride ions across the apical membranes of the epithelial cells. It is characterized by the chronic lung infections, exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, which also malnutrition, heart disease and the growth impairment, and progressive decline in the pulmonary function. This disease was first recognized, and the earliest paper was written by a Swiss pediatrician, Fanconi, where he described the changes in the pancreas under the title celiac syndrome. And the term cystic fibrosis was given by Dorothy Anderson, a physician from New York, and he created the first test to diagnose the cystic fibrosis. Later, the link of cystic fibrosis with the abnormal secretion of the mucus was pointed out by Sidney Farmer and Henry Schwarzman. About 12 million Americans are considered to be the carriers of the cystic fibrosis. In India, it is mostly seen in the Delhi and Chandigarh, whereas the new cases have been reported in some parts of the South India. And the first patient in India was described in 1968 by Bhaku et al. These are the various studies about the cystic fibrosis in India, where we can clearly see that the maximum number of cases were seen in Chandigarh in 2009 by Prasad et al. Now coming to cystic fibrosis in India, a systematic review by Asha et al. They have concluded that though cystic fibrosis has always been considered to be a rare disease in India, we hope that the identification of the wide range of mutations leads to of a probable increased incidence of cystic fibrosis in Indian patients. Coming to the etiopathogenesis of cystic fibrosis is caused by a gene known as CFTR, which is which makes a protein that controls the movement of salt and water in the body cells. And when this gene is affected, it leads to thick, sticky mucus, which blocks the pancreatic bile ducts and even the airway. Here we can see in the figure that in this figure that because of the thick mucus, there is inflammation seen on the lumen, and because of this, the lining of the alveoli is also thickened, and therefore less airflow is there. And the three symptoms of this are accumulation of the mucus secretion, high concentration of the salts, and long-standing infection of the respiratory tract. Coming to the clinical features, it causes salty tasting skin, as there is an anonymous quote that a child whose forehead tastes like salt when kissed will die soon. Because of this, it clearly indicates that it is a classic symptom of cystic fibrosis. It also leads to chronic respiratory problems, lung infections, poor growth and weight loss, meconium ileus, which is the blockage of the ileum due to the presence of meconium, which is the solid which is the mucus stool in the seen in the infant. It also leads to gastroesophageal reflux. Clubbing of the fingers is also seen. Now coming to the signs and symptoms according to each system, it causes sinusitis. In the lungs, it causes airway obstruction, pneumothorax, and hemoptysis. In liver, it causes obstructive biliary tract disease. In pancreas, it causes enzyme insufficiency and insulin-dependent diabetes mellitus. In intestine, it causes meconium ileus, distal intestinal obstruction syndrome, and rectal prolapse. It may also lead to male infertility. Coming to the oral manifestation of cystic fibrosis, it leads to the affects the major salivary glands mostly, and the minor salivary glands are not much affected. Among the major salivary glands, the parotid glands, which are the serous glands, are not affected, whereas the sublingual, being exclusively mucus, are severely affected by this. The mucus secreting glands are pathologically affected, but the serous glands reveal no significant impact, as given by Ignis and Davis in 1976. The calcium content is found to be elevated along with the mean pH and buffering capacity of the whole saliva by Wortman et al. In 1973 and Kinnerons et al. In 1973 and 85. It also leads to swelling of the lip and gingiva. Caries. There is low incidence of caries in cystic fibrosis, as seen by Primosh et al. In 1980. It also causes less dental plaque and gingivitis. This is due to the elevated calcium level, and the buffering capacity of the whole saliva favors the remineralization. It also reduces the caries rate because of the long-term antibiotic and pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy on the local microbiota as given by Littleton and White in 1964 and Sweeney and Shaw in 1965. On teeth, it leads to tooth discoloration and hypoplastic defects of the permanent teeth as given by Swallow et al. In 1967, Jaggles and Sweeney in 1976. The patient of cystic fibrosis of T. and on the buccal mucosa, dorsum of the saliva as given by Littman et al. In 1985. It also leads to malocclusions, mouth breathing, and anterior open bite, as given by Blash et al. In 1977. Coming to the complications of cystic fibrosis, it may cause chronic sinusitis, pneumonia, pneumothorax, cirrhosis of the liver, hemoptysis, and clubbing of the fingers. Distal intestinal obstruction syndrome could be seen, and diabetes mellitus. The dental management of these patients. The sputum clearance is generally assisted by physiotherapy or the exercise in these patients. Then amoxicillin or fluxazoxin as prophylaxis should be given. General anesthesia and nitrous oxide sedation are contraindicated in these patients as the airway may be obstructed. Tetracycline could be given in the patients with multiple drug sensitivity. The patient should be given for shorter appointments, and they should be treated in upright position for the secretion clearance. The oral health promotion and preventive measures should be promoted in these patients. Oral health of patients with cystic fibrosis and their siblings in the Journal of Dental Research in 1976. They have checked the caries prevalence, oral hygiene index, submandibular gland hypertrophy, occlusion, dental hypoplasia, and staining of the permanent teeth. And they found that the gland hypertrophy and dental staining were increased in the patients with the cystic fibrosis, whereas the caries was significantly decreased. And the other results were not significantly seen in these patients. The presence of the developmental defects of enamel in the cystic fibrosis patients in the Journal of Dentistry for Children in 2006, they have checked the presence of 3 different types of enamel defects, which includes the demarcated opacities, diffuse opacities, and hypoplasia in the deciduous as well as permanent teeth in the cystic fibrotic patients, and compared them with the control group. And in this also they concluded that the enamel defects were frequently found in the permanent teeth of the cystic fibrosis patients, and therefore professionals should be alerted to promote oral health among these patients. The oral health related quality of life in pediatric patients with cystic fibrosis in Special Care Dentistry Journal in 2016, they have concluded that although most of the patients reported good or excellent oral health, the adolescents reported poor oral health quality of life than the younger patients in this study. The age-related heterogeneity in dental caries and associated risk factors in individuals with the cystic fibrosis in the age group of 6 to 20 years, a pilot study in Journal of Cystic Fibrosis 2018, they concluded that younger children with cystic fibrosis may be protected from the caries, but there is an apparent loss of protection in the early adolescence associated with the multiple risk factors. Another article in Journal of Cytokine in 2020, the levels of pro and anti-inflammatory cytokines in the cystic fibrosis patients with or without gingivitis, they have concluded that the cystic fibrosis coexist in increasing pro-inflammatory and decreasing the anti-inflammatory response locally in these patients. Due to this increasing pro-inflammation, the cystic fibrosis patient should be followed up more often as compared to the control group, and therefore the gingival inflammation is also more in these patients. Coming to the renal disorders, starting with nephrotic syndrome, the kidney development starts soon after the conception, and it continues to grow and develop throughout the childhood. The formation of the new nephrons ceases about at 35th week of the gestation, and the structural and functional maturation of these nephrons go on for 2 years after the birth. The nephrotic syndrome appearing during the first year of the life is known as infantile nephrotic syndrome, and whereas which occurs later is known as the childhood nephrotic syndrome, as given by Habibar in 1993 and Holmberg et al. In 2004. The average incidence of nephrotic syndrome is 2 to 16.9 per 1 lakh children worldwide, as given by Chanchlani R et al. In 2016. The congenital nephrotic syndrome in India in the current era, a multi-center case studies in Nephron Clinical Practice 2020 by Rajiv Sinha et al. They have seen that 65 children that were identified with the nephrotic syndrome. Nearly half of them were preterm with had preterm delivery with previous history of fetal loss, sibling death in 22% cases, and there was no infective etiology which was confirmed in these cases. Starting with the etiology of nephrotic syndrome, it may be due to nephrin gene mutations, mitochondrial myopathies, CNS malformations, congenital syphilis, malaria, or maternal SLE. The clinical features of nephrotic syndrome includes the periorbital edema, as we can see in this figure, the puffy pale face, and lips also may be seen swollen. The other signs and symptoms include the pale skin and the fissures, hyperlipidemia, that is abnormally elevated levels of the lipid could be seen, proteinuria could be seen, and the patient may have frequent vomiting, and even tachycardia could be observed in these patients. The nephrotic syndrome is caused by multiple diseases, and most important associated diseases are systemic lupus erythematosus, diabetes, amyloidosis, and glomerulonephritis. Starting with renal failure, when the nephrons get destroyed to an unrepairable extent and beyond the repair, it is termed as renal failure. It leads to the burden and destruction of the existing nephrons and therefore manifesting itself with the symptoms of the renal functional impairment. There are two forms of renal failure, acute and chronic. Starting with acute renal failure, it is rapidly progressive loss of the renal function. It is characterized by the decreased urine production, that is also termed as oliguria, which may be 6.5 ml per kg per hour for the children and 1 mb per kg per hour in the infants. And the electrolyte disturbances and body fluid dearrangements are also seen in these patients. The chronic renal failure, it is characterized by gradual reduction in the number of functional nephrons sufficient to produce the alterations in the well-being and hampering the organ function. The glomerular filtration rate in this falls less than 60 milliliter per minute. There are 4 stages of renal function which could be described, which could be silent, in which the GFR is up to 50 milliliter per minute, renal insufficiency where GFR is 25 to 50 milliliter per minute, renal failure in the which the GFR is 5 to 25 milliliter per minute, and end-stage renal failure with where the GFR is less than 5 milliliter per minute. Coming to the symptoms of kidney failure in the children, it could be vomiting, headache, high urine output, bone pain, and the bed breath. The neurological symptoms may include fatigue, lethargy, sleep disturbances, seizures, peripheral neuropathy, and the motor weakness. The hematological symptoms may be anemia, bleeding tendency. Cardiovascular symptoms could be pericarditis, pericarditis, which is the inflammation of the muscles of the heart, hypertension, and the heart failure. In the respiratory organ, it could be seen as pleuritis and uremic lung. In the GI, it could be anorexia, GI bleeding, or the peptic ulcers. In the oral manifestations, generally these patients are considered to be caries free, and because there is increase in the pH, because of the increase in the salivary urea, there may be presence of ulcers due to decreased immunity in these patients. Xerostomia could be seen, which could lead to halitosis and food retention. Therefore, patient may have halitosis, and even increased calculus or plaque index could be seen in these patients. Thickened and reduced buccal mucosa with a layer of pseudomembrane covering the oral mucus gingiva, soft palate, and the pharynx. Vincent infection could be seen in this patient, which is the Vincent stomatitis. The metallic taste could be felt by these patients. Other symptoms could be candidiasis, drug-induced oral hairy leukoplakia, delayed eruption of the permanent teeth could be seen, reddish-brown discoloration of the teeth, and severe erosions because of the increased pH in the oral cavity. Dry mouth because of the restricted fluid intake in these patients because of the kidney dysfunctions. Adverse effects of the drug therapy and the low salivary flow rate could be seen. Uremic fetor, that is the bad odor or the presence of the urea-like odor in the breathing could be seen in these patients because of the high salivary concentration of the urea, which may be converted to ammonia. Increased phosphate and the protein concentration may change the salivary pH. Candidiasis could be seen more frequently in the patients with the transplant because they are generally under immunosuppression drugs. Gingivitis, the plaque accumulation and poor oral hygiene could be seen. The general medical care, prolonged hospitalization, and the hypoplastic teeth and the high plaque scores are also associated with these, as given by Martins et al. In 2008. The frequency of the gingival inflammation is low because of the immunosuppression, and the uremia associated with the renal disease alter the inflammatory response to the bacterial plaques in the gingival tissue, as explained by Nunn et al. In 2000. Enamel hypoplasia, 31% to 83% cases report enamel hypoplasia as given in various studies, and it is observed in both the dentition, that is primary and permanent. The uremic frost, that is the white patches of the skin, can also occasionally be seen intraorally on the buccal mucosa or the tongue. The pulp chamber, the narrowing or calcification of the tooth pulp chamber could be seen. The delayed eruption of the permanent teeth could be seen. The saliva may be alkaline due to elevated urea and phosphate concentrations. There is increased risk of jaw fracture due to the trauma or the oral surgery. Therefore, the care should be taken in such patients. Dental caries and developmental defects of the enamel in individuals with chronic kidney disease, a systematic review and meta-analysis in Oral Disease Journal 2019. They concluded that the individuals with chronic kidney disease present lower dental caries scores and high prevalence of the defects of enamel as compared to the individual control group. The occlusion as caries risk indicator in children with the renal disorders and in healthy children. They concluded that the caries risk assessment can be performed by implementation of the clinical characteristic of the interjaw occlusive relations, not only in the healthy children but also in the children diagnosed with the pleonephritis and the nephrotic syndrome. Starting with the dental management of these patients, the consultation of the nephrologist is compulsory in these patients, as they may be under certain medications, and the medications we prescribe also need the consultations of the nephrologist. Blood investigations. The blood investigation should be carried out in all the patients, as they may be under immunosuppressive drugs or the drugs which may alter the concentrations of the blood. The antibiotic IM should be given by the IM route, as the GI absorption is poor in these patients. The procedures which require to be treated under antibiotic prophylaxis include extractions, periodontal treatment, endodontic procedures, periapical surgery, placement of the orthodontic bands, implants, and the reimplantation. The antibiotics which could be used could be penicillin or cephalosporins. The history of the allergies of penicillin should be checked first. And the drugs which may cause the nephrotoxic, which are termed to be as nephrotoxic drugs like tetracycline or streptomycin, should be avoided in these patients. The lidocaine, xylocaine should be used in these patients because the resorption, they have the resorption potential of the liver of lidocaine, xylocaine. The analgesics like paracetamol should be given. The NSAID should be avoided in these patients with the advanced renal failure. Desmopressin can be used in the case of severe bleeding. Tranexamic acid could be used as an oral rinse. For patients under dialysis, no treatment should be done on the day of the dialysis. The nephrologist should be contacted for the heparin dose adjustment, and the local hemostatic agent should always be available in the dental trolley while treating these patients. For the patients of the renal transplant, the foci of infection should be eliminated. Prophylactic antibiotic treatment should be done under prophylactic antibiotic therapy. 25 milligram of the hydrocortisone via IV route before the procedure can be given in these patients. All the elective dental procedures should be avoided first 6 months post the renal transplant. The dental considerations and management of children with the renal disease, an overview in the Journal of Dentistry and Dental Medicine. They have described the use of various antibiotics in these patients. The patients with history of penicillin therapy with the previous 6 months should be given cephaloridin by IM route 30 minutes before the procedure, and followed by erythromycin orally 6 hourly for 3 days. Erythromycin orally commencing 12 hours before the operation and taken 6 hourly for 4 days. The patients who are sensitive to penicillin should be given tetracycline orally commencing 12 hours before the operation and 6 hourly for 4 days. And the patient without a history of penicillin should be given triplopen in a single IM injection 30 minutes before the procedure. Procaine penicillin and benzyl penicillin by IM route 30 minutes before operation, followed by oral penicillin V taken 6 hourly for 3 days, and oral penicillin V commenced 12 hours before the operation and continued 6 hourly for 4 days. The oral health and dental care of the children with the renal disease, a narrative review. In this, they have given various guidelines, as I have previously described about the antibiotic prophylaxis and everything. Now I am going to continue about the other guidelines given in this journal. The stress reduction guidelines, the patient's physician should be consulted to determine the additional steroids. Patient should be obtain the proper rest rest the night before the treatment and should reduce the work or social obligations on the day of the treatment. The dialysis patient should be scheduled in the morning after the dialysis therapy when the patient's health is best suited for the dental treatment. The appointment should be kept short. Barbiturate, benzodiazepines, meperidine, and chloral hydrates can usually be used in these patients. Nitrous oxide oxygen therapy is excellent anxiolytic regimen in these patients. Coming to the chair position, the patient should be seated in semi-reclined position or in the position where the patient is comfortable. Provide breaks to the patient during the treatment so that the patient is relaxed. Local anesthesia can be used safely in majority of the patients. Administer immoral anesthetics slowly with the aspiration. For the infection control, antibiotic prophylaxis, as I have described, should be given. The oral infection should be created early to minimize the complication. Proper glove, mask, and protective measures should be taken in these patients. And aseptic protocol must be followed. The cross contamination should also be taken care in these patients, and the instrument should be properly sterilized. The hemorrhagic dental procedures, avoid the hemorrhagic procedures within the first 8 hours after the hemodialysis. Provide the orophylactic antibiotic to prevent the infections. Obtain the preoperative complete blood count, as I have already described, and give attention to the good surgical techniques and closure. And to prevent the bleeding after minor surgery, the microabular collagen, topical thrombin can be used, or the stents can be used. Desmopressin or cryoprecipitate could be used for major surgical procedures to control the bleeding and avoid the needle sticks. But if they occur, the patient should be screened for HBAGs and HIV infections. So I would like to summarize what I have presented today by as we have seen the cases of cystic fibrosis, nephrotic syndrome, and the renal failure. Both respiratory organ and the renal organ are important functions of the body, and therefore care should be taken while treating these patients. We have already discussed about the clinical features in these patients, the oral manifestation, and the protocols for the dental management in these patients. Thank you.